Welcome to Nasdaq Sector Talks. I'm your host, Jill Malandrino, global markets reporter at Nasdaq. Joining me at the market site, we have Adam Lazarus. He is a transportation analyst with Nasdaq IR Intelligence. And we're going to take a look at what's driving the transports. Adam, it's great to have you back with me. As always, let's pull up a chart and get right into this of the Dow Jones Transportation Average.
Okay, so the Dow Jones Transportation Average, at least out of this morning, is now, it's still up for the year, 8% year to date, but we've noticed that it's broken an important technical level of 10,000, which has held a couple of times throughout the last month since it hit the low back in December. It hit it back in January. We saw again in March, it touched the 10,000 level and kept going higher, but this time doesn't seem to be holding, as we see money pouring out of transports and likely going into at least the bond market. We see the 10-year yield now at a 19-month low. So yes, the broader markets are falling and the transports are going along with it.
Now, when you take a look at the chart, you're also looking at the RSI to help you
Yes.
make your investment decision over here. What does it show to you around that 29 level with the RSI?
Okay, so RSI is relative strength index. Anything below 30, a stock is considered oversold. Any reading above 70, it's overbought. This reading is now at 29, so the transports in general are now in oversold territory. So it's tough to dictate the future, but right now they're technically oversold because of how much selling is going on the last couple of days. So we could potentially see a rebound as it tries to push it back above 30 when algos get kicked in to try to support at least the Dow Jones Transportation Average and some of the constituents within it.
All right, let's talk some fundamentals now. Trucking and logistics. What are you taking a look at there?
Okay, so trucking has been very weak of late. We're seeing sagging prices on mixed economic reading and also just concerns about the potential trade war. And we had some issues with the weather, which has been interrupting just spring deliveries. We're seeing, at least on the spot trucking market, the price is basically book last minute business. Transports are down 16% for the month of April. And if you look at the Cass Freight Index, we're seeing that now down for the 5th month in a row. So just the prices of shipping, which is likely because there's less demand, has been going lower, which has adversely affected stocks in the sector.
All right, let's wrap it up here with the Boeing 737 MAX update. It doesn't sound as if the story's gotten any better.
It hasn't. It's still ongoing. The latest now is we had the largest airlines trading group come out with a story in the last few days saying that they see that the Boeing 737 MAX will be likely grounded at least for another 2 months, if not more, which brings us into August. So which is, of course, the airlines around, at least in the Northern Hemisphere, are missing peak summer travel. When it does come back onto, when the grounding has been launched and then they can get up in the air, it's still not going to be the next day with the aviation authorities. They're still going to have to go through 100 to 150 hours in the air. They're going to have to do engine checks since they've been idle now for a few months. Then, of course, they have to update the 737 MAX software, which we've all been waiting for. Then the pilots have to be trained, and there's no real answer as to how long the training is going to be on the actual software itself, which is going to delay it even further. And then we have to see the FAA is not giving a timeline. The other aviation authorities are not giving timelines either. They could potentially do similar to what they did when they grounded it, a break from the FAA. So the FAA may launch it, but in Europe and Asia, they may be reluctant to raise it just yet. And then it comes to, okay, once they start flying again, there are still people that are going to be a little bit nervous about getting on the flights. And the U.S. airlines have said that if it's a 737 MAX plane that is now back in service, if a customer wants to change it, they won't charge a fee to get onto another plane if it's the same route.
But longer time, what is the impact to Boeing? You have the carriers decided they don't want to order any more planes, and now they're going to Airbus. It's not like they could just change their mind and switch their fleet around. It doesn't happen that quick.
No, of course, because they have orders through the next decade.
Yeah.
At least in the short term, it's tough to determine financially if any action is going to be taken from some of the airlines. I know some of the Chinese airlines have asked for some compensation. The American and the European ones, it doesn't look like they have just yet, but it's hard to determine if they're going to be liable anyway. And yeah, they have, at least for the next 5-10 years, there's no been cancel orders because they're just in, because it's basically for so many years out. Boeing at least has slowed the production, at least 20% of how many planes they were making. It's too early to see if they're going to slow it even more, if they're going to try to develop the next future 797 or the next additional generation, which Boeing is already making another generation that's supposed to come out in 2020.
Well, they probably want to just to rebrand it in general.
Right, because like the surveys have come out and 50% of people, it said as of right now, would not get on a 737 MAX plane. It's hard to determine that, okay, they booked their ticket, find it's a 737 MAX, are 50% just not going to go on the plane, which is really going to hurt the bottom lines of a lot of airlines. And then this can drag on for a lot longer. Their stock is down roughly 15% since the second plane crashed back in March, because they have a lot of other businesses, of course, in defense. But it's a little tough, at least long term, what's going to happen with this specific plane, if they're going to lose business to Boeing, or how that's going to affect, because Southwest has been buying Boeing planes for a lot of years, and they always have just used Boeing. So it will be tough to see, especially with the CEO passing a few years ago, what they may do moving forward.
All right. As always, thank you, Adam, for joining me on Sector Talks. And thank you for joining us. I'm Jill Malandrino, Global Markets Reporter at Nasdaq.